Hey guys! Dimensions End Tier 10 in DFFOO Global has introduced the Disaster Machine boss, and this fight has been proven to be quite a challenge. So beyond the usual fight infographic that I did, I thought I'd just do a short video as well to cover some of the key mechanics and some of my tips and opinion on approaching this fight. Before I begin, a quick shout out and credit to Destroth. In the early discussions and analysis of this fight, Destroth introduced the concept of the 3 phases, and I really liked the way he approached the fight and breaking down the fight, so I'll be using that in this video as well. Beyond this, if you're still having difficulty on this fight, do check out Destroth's party infographics as well, because it does give more ideas on team compositions that can handle this fight. Coming to phase 1 of the fight, which is from 100 to 60% of the boss's HP. This phase is so called the debuff phase because a lot of the mechanics is centered around how many debuffs is on the boss. If the boss has less than 2 debuffs, it will have 200% additional brave and HP damage resistance, which also means that you need to at least ensure that there are 2 debuffs on the boss, otherwise you'll practically be doing 0 damage to the boss. If the boss has less than 5 debuffs, the boss will gain an additional 50% boost to the brave and HP damage that it does, and this can be quite devastating. If the boss has less than 7 debuffs, so anything from 0 to 6 debuffs, the boss will also instant warp its turn to the front anytime you take an action. And finally, if the boss has anything less than 8 full debuffs, the boss will gain a boost of 50% to its attack, defense, and speed stats. All of these bonuses are cumulative, so for example, if the boss only has 2 debuffs, the boss will have the 50% boost to brave and HP damage, it will have the warp turn mechanic, and it will also have the 50% boost to its attack, defense, and speed. This phase is actually, in my opinion, the most dangerous phase on this fight. Firstly, the boss already has some devastating attacks, including one AoE HP attack that it can do as part of its normal rotation, and if it has all these relevant boosts to its stats, those attacks will deal significantly more damage and can even one-shot some party members. If the boss can warp its turn after any player action, this means that you'll be eating these attacks much more frequently throughout this phase as well. The key to managing phase 1 is to build a party that has at least some capabilities to land debuffs on the boss. The golden number of debuffs that you want to try to aim for is actually at least 7, though I guess it is possible to damage the boss with anything from 2 debuffs onwards. But for the most part, you really want to prevent the boss warping its turn anytime you take an action, otherwise you'll find yourself being under an immense pressure to deal with the attacks that the boss can do. On the bottom of this slide, I've placed my suggestions on some characters that can help you to achieve the debuffs required. Tidus is really the star here. Not only does he come into battle with 3 debuffs that are framed already, he can also reapply these debuffs very easily just by using his slash combo. With Tidus in the party, this means that you only need around 4 more framed debuffs to fill up the debuff slots. Tidus is also highly recommended because he also comes in handy at a later part of the fight, which I'll cover later. Beyond Tidus, Caius is also another great option because he was recently released. Caius synergizes well with Tidus because Caius lands 4 framed debuffs and none of it overlaps with Tidus. So with both of them, you actually can already land 7 framed debuffs in total. As a bonus for Caius, you can also use him as an LD call ability or a base call ability to land his 4 framed debuffs. So Tidus in the main party plus another character with a Caius call can already land 7 framed debuffs that will help you manage phase 1. Beyond these characters, you can bring other characters that specialize in debuffs. On the right hand side, I mentioned Faris and Amiditalion. These 2 characters I think deserve special mention as call abilities because they land a number of debuffs that are all framed as well. Faris is notable because she landed 5 frame debuffs, which is the most out of any core ability. And her Dancing Dagger actually helps a lot in this phase as well because it ensures that the boss always ends its turn with 0 Brave after it does its attack. Frame debuffs is preferred over unframed debuffs, and especially if you can actually fill the boss's debuff slots with 8 frame debuffs, you can then actually deny the boss from buffing itself, which is also a bonus because the boss can grant itself buffs to its attack and brave damage that it can do, and all of it stacks with these auras that are on the slide as well. Because this phase is also the most dangerous phase, you can also consider to use one of your force attacks to enter force time here, or even pop your summon mode close to the end of this phase to help you quickly finish this phase. When you hit 59% health on the boss, you'll enter phase 2, and I like to refer phase 2 as the honeymoon phase because this phase, in my opinion, is actually the least dangerous phase on this fight. Now make no mistake, none of the boss's attacks have changed, so the bosses will still use the same attacks as it does in phase 1. However, the moment you pass into phase 2 threshold, the debuff mechanics that was present in phase 1 will completely disappear, and you actually get an in-game prompt to inform you of that happening. This means that the boss will lose a lot of its relevant boosts to its stats, and you should expect that some of its attacks will hit significantly less hard than it did before. During this phase, of course, you should try to recover any health that you've lost in phase 1, so any core abilities that can heal or provide HP regen, or of course any main party characters that also provide HP regen, such as Charlotta, would help to recover lost HP in this phase. During this short phase, because it's only about 20% health, you'd also want to try to quickly build up your force gauge to 100% because you will need to enter into force time when you come into phase 3. It is also highly likely that during this phase, the boss will enter into its force time. The boss entering force time actually isn't too threatening in terms of its attacks. It still does mostly the same attacks, and its force time attack that it does at the start isn't too threatening as well. The biggest drawback is that during the enemy's force time, the damage that you do will be significantly reduced. But considering that the boss will only enter force time for 5 turns, and the sweeper turns will also count towards the 5, enemy's force time shouldn't last too long. Something that can help if you have the capability to do so is to also disable the sweepers. Only the boss is immune to disables, the sweepers are not, so disabling the sweepers will also mean that they will pass their turn and reduce the force time count without much trouble. The moment you hit 39%, you will hit phase 3, the final phase of the fight. Right at the start of the fight, you see a prompt telling you that the boss will start repairing itself, and you see sort of like a greyish smoking aura coming from the boss. For the rest of the fight, the boss will gain an innate 1% max HP every player turn. This translates to 1.1 million HP healing in the Dimensions End stage and 950,000 HP healing in the Dare to Defy stage 5. On top of that, there will also be a permanent HP poison aura in play, and anytime that you take a turn, you lose 10% of your max HP. Take note that the above HP healing and HP poison effects will also trigger even if you are inside summon or burst mode. The HP healing is tremendous, and the idea behind this is for you to try to capitalize on your force time bonus and preferably BT phase as well to quickly burn down the boss and overcome the HP healing that the boss can do. To that end, Tidus is also a star unit here, and this is why I mentioned Tidus earlier in the video. Having Tidus helps you with the debuffs in phase 1, and also his FRBT can help you very quickly bring down the boss in phase 3, even if you start the FRBT mode significantly earlier than 39% health. Beyond Tidus, of course, we have Charlotta. I mentioned her earlier as being able to provide HP regen. Set up correctly as well, Charlotta in her FRBT should also help you to quickly burn down this phase. Beyond those, you can use other characters that specialize in high damaging attacks during FR and BT mode, and I mentioned Terra here as another example. Lastly, something that should be mentioned and for you to take note is when the boss transitions from one phase to the next, which is when it hits 59% and 39% health. When the boss transitions to the next phase, he will also trigger an order to its sweeper minions to attack, and I placed a screenshot of how it looks like in the in-game prompt. It says sweeper ordered to attack. When this happens, and if you are outside of PT or summon mode when this prompt comes out, the sweeper will immediately use an attack called Dbl Machine Gun, and this attack will either be the plus or plus plus variant depending on how much HP the sweeper has. If the sweeper has 50% or more HP, it will use the plus plus variant of the attack, and you don't want this to happen because it is a guaranteed single target instant KO. If the sweeper is below 50% when the orders come up, the sweeper will do the plus variant of the attack, which is only a single target with an HP damage attack. Do take note though that either versions of this attack will target a random target, and this is regardless of who the sweeper is currently targeting. Because it is also random target, you cannot use lock-on effects on the sweepers to try to say lock them onto a Kain that is in the air or a Freya is in the air. It will not work, it will still target a random target. There is one thing to note, some players have reported that they've actually managed to skip this attack completely, and it is possible to actually skip the Dbl Machine Gun plus or plus plus. To do that, what you need is to be in either burst or summon mode before you transition phases. If you transition phase during your burst or summon mode, the boss will still trigger the orders to the sweepers to attack, but because you are already inside burst or summon mode, the sweepers will have to wait until you are outside of your BT or summon mode before they can do the Dbl Machine Gun attack. During this time, after the bosses, and I have to emphasize this, after the bosses have issued the orders, if you kill the sweepers and the boss resummons a new set of sweepers, the new set of sweepers are sweepers that have not been given the orders to attack. So therefore, after you exit summon or BT mode, the new set of sweepers will actually not use Dbl Machine Gun. To recap, if you want to skip this phase, what you need to do is to transition the phase while you are inside either BT or summon mode. Allow the boss to order the sweepers to attack while you're inside BT or summon mode, and then quickly killing off the sweepers before you come out of your BT or summon mode. By doing so, the new set of sweepers will not use Dbl Machine Gun plus 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 because technically they have not been given any orders to attack. Putting all this together at the side of the screen, I've put a sort of like a simple infographic about the flow of the fight. So from 100 to 60% is phase 1, from 59 to 40% is phase 2, and lastly starting from 39% will be in phase 3. The Dbl Machine Guns will be ordered at the 59 and 39% point, and the words in green are sort of my recommendations in what to do during certain parts of the fight. So for example, at the start of phase 1, you want to try to focus on landing debuffs on the boss. I think a particularly good time to pop summon is right before you hit 59%, because then you may have the chance to actually skip the Dbl Machine Gun plus or plus plus attack as mentioned before. And a really good time to go into FRBT mode will be somewhere between 40 to 50% depending on which character you have for the FR, so that you can also potentially skip the Dbl Machine Gun attack at 39% if you are in BT mode, and hopefully be able to burn down the boss all the way down to 0 by the time you exit burst mode. Some general tips: as I mentioned before, the boss's attacks can hurt, and you have to especially watch out when it is targeting your entire party, because it will use quite a heavily damaging attack then. If you bring damage mitigating calls such as the Warrior of Light call, you should consider using it more in phase 1, because the boss's attack should actually hurt more in phase 1 compared to the other phases. Depending on your party setup and call abilities, if you have the ability to do so, try to aim to land 8 frame debuffs on the boss, because doing so will also deny the boss from buffing itself. I've already mentioned timing the summon mode and BT mode near the end of phase 1 and phase 2. And lastly, don't forget that you have normally 2 users of your FR, so don't be shy on actually using one FR even during phase 1 so that you can quickly burn through and go into phase 2. But keep note that you need to save at least one more force attack for phase 3, otherwise you'll be having great difficulties in overcoming the HP regen that the boss will have. I have not covered all the mechanics in this fight in this video, but you can find it in the infographics that I've released. Anyway, that's it for this video. I hope it's been somewhat helpful, and as always, if you enjoyed the content, please leave a like, comment or subscribe. It really helps a lot. Till then, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!